everybody? It's Dr. Rick Wallace checking in on you. Hope everybody is having a great day or has had a great day. It's definitely towards the end of the day. I'm leaving the office, man. I've been here since 4 something this morning. Took a break to work out, right back at it, going home, and then I'll be working from there. But I just wanted to stop by and talk to you about something that's sort of been a theme. And, you know, my thing is, some things, once I get my claw into it, it's hard for me to drop because it's something that I'm passionate about. You know, there are people out there, let's just be real about it. There are people out there that do what I do as far as sharing information and creating spaces to discuss topics because they have charismatic personalities and they know how to draw people, and it's money involved. They have no problem pushing the sensational angle, and to each his own. I don't do this for that reason, because if I did it for that reason, my approach would be completely different, because people are drawn more to drama. People are drawn more to gossip. People are drawn more to other people's business and suffering. We are a people plagued by misery, and so we live vicariously through others. That's why celebrities have such a hold on us, is because that's how we live. We live through them. We would rather live through them than to work on ourselves and fix ourselves and develop our own lives at a level that we can enjoy living them, which should be a goal for everyone, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So what I do because I'm passionate about it. What I do because I actually love my people. What I do is because I have a deep empathy for the plight of those who are voiceless, those who are oppressed, those who are downtrodden, those who struggle. I somehow connect, and I've had this since I was a child. You know, it's not unheard for me to see somebody else's plight and literally feel it and come to tears. And that's who I've always been. It's just always been there. And I found early on in life the way to deal with that so I didn't feel helpless was to get involved. Because I would feel so helpless that I was seeing something and nothing was being done. So I decided to do something. And that's been my life, doing something. I do something about my own issues. I don't sit around and wait on anyone to do anything for me. If someone does, it's because they've come along and they saw me on the grind with my hand to the plow doing the things that are necessary, and they saw honor in it, and they decided to help. It was never because of sympathy, because they never saw me feeling sorry for myself. What am I getting at? Well, first and foremost, it's real difficult to sit up and watch how easily we are misled, how easily we can get off into our different corners of thinking and thought and behavior, and not realizing that that very way of thinking is being used to control and manipulate us. Yesterday I made a video about Crazy Joe and Kamala, and I was telling everybody from the beginning that this dog and pony show was just that. It was theater at its highest. You know, you have to really truly be totally consumed by your emotions not to see the pattern and the play. One of the things that my training has taught me and my experiences is how to recognize patterns in behavior, patterns in results. So you look for the patterns, and then you look for what produces the patterns. If there are patterns that lead to positive results, you want to emulate and duplicate the patterns. If it's patterns that lead to negative results, then obviously you want to go to those patterns and adjust them. Change behaviors, change thoughts, change decision making, all the things that create the pattern. But the pattern has a cause, the pattern has an impetus, and you have to know and understand the impetus. Well, the one thing that I can look at is the pattern of the relationship between blacks and Democrats. And everybody said, why is he so on Democrats? Because you don't have to tell blacks not to trust Republicans. It's inbred in us. It's natural. We instinctively despise Republicans. We don't need to know what their policy is. We don't need to know how they think on an issue. We will find something wrong with everything they say because we've been programmed to do so. Conversely, we have been programmed to accept anything that is pushed our way by Democrats. Why? Because it is, again, ingrained into our psyche that Democrats mean us no harm, that Democrats are for black people, that Democrats are for poor people, and that Democrats are the ones who will ultimately deliver us out of this state of oppression and poverty. And we never look at the behavior. We never look at the patterns. We never look at the results and where they're coming from. We automatically assume if we're suffering, the Republicans are doing it, and we need to get Democrats to fix it. We never look at the fact that this is theater. This is two sides pretending to have different objectives, but ultimately taking us to the same place. Doing it two distinctive ways, but still getting us to the same place. That's why there's been no change. That's why we still are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. That's why we are still experiencing a constant widening of the wealth gap. That's why we are still suffering to achieve consistently high levels of education across the board for our youth, and on and on and on. These aren't old situations. These aren't old challenges. I mean, these aren't new challenges. These are the same challenges we were facing 50 years ago. When you look at the theater, you can go back. Now, Joe Biden chose Kamala Harris because that was going to create a dynamic that was going to pull the Me Too movement. That was his political strategy. It was going to pull the Me Too movement. It was going to pull not only black women, but women across the board, because you got to understand now, pay attention. The people who put Trump over the top in in the election that he won were white women, and it was the white moderate woman in collective that did it. You have the extreme right, highly conservative. That was an automatic. They're going Republican no matter what. Then you have the complete left, liberals. They're going Democrat no matter what. But it's those moderates that swing this thing the majority of the time. And Biden and those of his camp knew that it was important to get those white, female, moderate, conservative votes. And so here comes Kamala Harris, changing her stature, changing her position, and doing a couple of things to be more palatable to the moderate, while all the time having been very, very liberal in many of her behaviors and moods. And the crazy thing is, if you look at all of the issues with blacks and imprisonment in the state of California, while she was first a state's attorney, then the attorney general, it speaks volumes. But what I remember most about the thing leading up to the election is in the primary race, when they were still trying to determine who would actually be running for president, representing the Democrats. And they were debating, and Kamala straight up called Joe Biden a racist, pointed out all the things that everybody else was pointing out about Joe Biden and why he shouldn't even be considered by the black community as for president, because of all the damage he's done in his writing of legislature and his lobbying and politicking with others to author and sponsor legislation that was diametrically opposed to the progressive movement of the black population. All the way back into the 70s, this dude has been doing this. This dude was one of the instrumental people who blocked busing for blacks into white school districts, saying that it would create a jungle, and he didn't want his kids living and going to school in a jungle. And it just progressed on up through there until we get to the infamous, crime bill of 1994 under the Clinton administration. That's where the one where Hillary Clinton called young black boys super predators and said they need to be brought to heel. And these laws were pushed out, laws that would focus on disproportionate sentencing and biased sentencing, mandatory sentencing that would disproportionately impact blacks. While statistics and studies show that in many crimes that were on that ledger, whites are more likely to commit them. Whites are more likely to possess drugs and drug paraphernalia, while blacks are disproportionately harassed, searched, and charged for possession. It is what it is, but we understand under this. Crack cocaine was given a different weight in sentencing than powdered cocaine, even though powdered cocaine is a pure form of the Schedule II drug that is, in almost every instance that I'm aware of, illegal. And so we have literally hundreds of thousands of black men in jail since. Families broken up, communities destroyed, black community economies disrupted, and yet the person who is primarily responsible, at least in authoring, you got to understand, he authored it, but that was an entire vote in the House, and then a majority of the senators had to vote it in now. But understand, that was under Democratic control. See where I'm going with this? That was under Democratic control. That was the Clinton administration. We had a strong Democratic influence then. So that was the Democrats. It wasn't just the administration. Clinton signed it, but it had to go through the House and the Senate, and then he signed it. Okay, so what am I getting at? She calls him a racist. And then all of a sudden, when all of the fighting is over and it's clear who's going to be representing, all of a sudden, Joe is no longer a racist now. Because she can't sit up and say that she is aligning herself with a racist, so now he can't be a racist, right? But he was a racist when you were trying to get that spot, and you were pointing out some specifics that qualified him as a racist. Now, we're not talking simply bigotry here. We're not talking bigotry. We're not talking he doesn't like black people. We're talking about he's executing policies that institutionalize the advantageous position of whites and the oppressive position of blacks, that hold and lock these positions into place. We're talking a racial caste system supported by policies and laws. And that's the thing that you have to look at and understand and see. And my problem, again, as I stated yesterday, isn't what they're doing. My problem is what we're doing. My problem is that we're sitting up and we're literally looking at the pattern and refusing to acknowledge its presence. We're looking at the pattern and we are refusing to acknowledge that the pattern exists. We are trying to sit up and pretend as if we don't see what they are doing. And that simply is not acceptable. If we're ever going to reach a point in a position in which we are going to rise to the challenge of actually empowering ourselves, actually rising and meeting the challenge and the need of the day, then we have to sit up and actually understand that we cannot allow them to move against us, that we cannot allow them to consistently manipulate us and control us. Now, what we have to understand is this isn't simply about voting. Voting is simply a litmus test to find out where the minds are, what people are thinking. The power plays are being done through lobbying groups. The power plays are being done through the ability to finance politicians. The power plays are being done in the ability to own media and to control the narrative from the media, to apply pressure and leverage from the media. It is not in the idea of voting in and of itself. I'm not saying that there isn't some strategy in the world of politics and voting. What I'm saying is when you only represent 13.6% of the population, 13.7% of the population, that's just if you exclude those who are considered black by everybody who sees them, but have decided to categorize or designate themselves as being biracial or whatever, or interracial, and not claiming black as in descendant of slave black, then it's 13.7%. It could easily be about 15%, which would put us back in the larger minority group. But it is what it is, and that's on purpose. Those categories were added to the census in order to keep the perceived numbers of blacks in a certain position for the sense of strategy. You have to understand all of that. There's a reason why you have black, not of Latino descent. That's why you have Latino, black, and all these different things to separate the fact that a non-white population outside of European Latinos is growing. And that's a whole nother discussion for another time. But what I want to focus on as I end this is the responsibility of black people to educate ourselves, the responsibility of black people to elevate ourselves, the responsibility of black people to literally sit up and observe what you're seeing outside of the force of your emotions and analyze it, anatomize it, break it down, and look at it for what it really is. Look at it and start to look at what you are getting for your vote, for your support, for your loyalty, and determine if it's really of value to you. Being talked to smooth and things like, and I mean, Joe really didn't do that. If you want to be honest, Joe was so arrogant in the way that he dealt with black people this time around. It was so arrogant. You would never know that he is the person who wrote the crime bill that was so destructive to the black community because he refused to budge on it. Now, Bill Clinton backpedaled on it and said it was one of the worst things that he was a part of. He stood up and said that when he really had, not that I can see really any true political, because he was no longer in the political arena now. I don't know what Hillary's planning on doing anytime soon, but Bill backpedals a few years back and said it was, something he's not proud of. But Joe definitely hadn't. And Kamala used those very laws to imprison black men. And when questioned about legalizing marijuana, her main concern about it was that marijuana was actually one of the means through which they were imprisoning black men. And if they legalized it, then that would literally take free labor out of the prison. She literally said it. And I did an entire report that's still out there. And if you want it, you can sit up and email me and I'll send you a copy of it free. But I did a report on some of the things that this person, even people who were going to be honest and objective, who wanted to support Kamala, a lot of quote unquote feminist groups, a lot of liberal women who wanted to support Kamala, but were truly being honest and objective, had to admit that there were some real issues on the table that needed to be addressed by her before they could feel comfortable with giving her their vote. And in my opinion, she never actually addressed it at a level that should have been satisfactory. She danced around it. She did a bunch of other things, but she simply played on the fact that she's perceived as black, even though she identifies as Indian American. But she plays it, you know, she pledged, AKA, all that. And the problem is, when she was sworn in as a senator, she was sworn in as the first Indian American female senator. And that was her pride, not female, African American female senator, but she came in with a strong embrace of her mother's heritage. Versus her father, who has Jamaican Irish heritage, if I'm remembering correctly. So there's not a lot of pure connectivity to the African diaspora. And I'm not one for breaking down and qualifying who's black and who's not. I'm more about who's walking black and living black and claiming black. There's a bunch of people that I see get dismissed because people don't like them or people don't want them to be a part of it, but are actually out there fighting it and stepping in it. It is what it is. I don't want to get into that right now. But what I do want to say is we've got to do a better job of being aware and then acting accordingly. Not being led by our emotions, not leaving our emotions up for manipulation, not allowing them to pull our emotional strings to control our behavior. That's our responsibility, no one else's. We've got to take control of the reins and start to move forward. And that's what I have to say on that. Now, as I end this, I am again asking that those of you who know the work that we do at the Odyssey Project, show your love, show your support. Go to the description box, click the link, or pay or contribute via our Cash App account. All that information is there. But the Black Men Lead Rite of Passage program needs your support. The Restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters program needs your support. The biggest believe it or not, those are huge, especially Black Men Lead. And the work that Marion's doing is growing Ghettos Forgotten Daughters too. But the research center at the Odyssey Project logs hours upon hours. And believe it or not, research isn't free. Number one, it's time consuming, but research isn't free. Resources aren't free. And a bunch of other things go into it, conducting studies and a bunch of other things, along with literature review and a bunch of other things that happen. It's costly. And I head that department. Myself, and then Dr. Michael Blanchard, and a few other people, and then those who come underneath us. But it's my baby, I created it, and it's something that I'm standing to fight for. And what I'm asking is that the people who are really truly serious about getting behind and being a part of the solution to the enigmatic issues that we face as a race, show some love, show some support. We also could use more researchers. We could also use more Black men who are willing to be models in the network that we're creating across the country. There are so many young black males who need male presences. And so I am looking for young black men who are modeling black manhood. And so you will be interviewed. You will, have to qualify to work with these young boys, because we're trying to create the proper environment for them to not only be taught and told, but them to observe manhood in action. And so we need some guys who want to volunteer. If you want to volunteer, to be available in your area. So when, because I get single mothers, that's an issue. I get single mothers that come to me consistently on a regular basis. That's not a week that goes by that I don't get at least one black mother who wants me to work with her son. And I do the best I can. But again, the number one is it's time consuming. And it's only so many things I can give my time to at one time. But it's also taxing. And what I mean by that is when you're working with someone that's in a position that these young men are in, it takes a lot out of you, because you're not operating from a healthy space. You're operating from a broken space, and you're trying to get these young men to a place where they can open up, where they can trust, where they can start to see something. But then you're talking to them, but they still can't see it. And so that's the other element and component of it is, I can handle working with these young men. I would love to have a funded program to where I can do it. So then cost isn't an issue. We can just go all in. But I can work with the guys, but I can't be in Wilmington. I can't be in Charlotte. I can't be in Fort Lauderdale. I can't be in Fresno. All these different places, Virginia, Atlanta. I mean, these places that I have people that I'm working with, but I can't be there. And I'm asking their mom, and one of the reasons the mothers contact me is because they've tried to find black men to plug their sons up to or plug their sons into, and it's just hard. And so I would love to have black men, in every city, who see this. And if you know somebody that you think would be a great candidate, definitely contact them and then contact me. Man, we're doing stuff by the way, we're doing stuff all over in the UK. And hopefully we're going to expand it further than that. But we're doing work, It's not like we're sitting around waiting on funding or waiting on somebody to happen. But it would be nice to have programs already funded instead of always trying to come up with funding. And that normally means me. But anyway, what we've got to do is move forward. So I'm asking you again, show some love. And I'll be honest with you, not a lot of love has been shown. And for whatever reason, I'm not, I'm me. And if it was really up to me, which is something I probably actually have to work on, but if it was up to me, I probably wouldn't ask. Because I'm like this, I'm going to let you know that's an issue. If you're really truly about that life, I'm kind of like, hey, those who are about it going to get with it. But it's people that believe in what I'm doing outside of me, that are putting in blood, sweat, and tears, that have been committed to this thing for years. And they have came to me personally, more than one, and said, we need your voice to reach out and ask for help. It isn't about you. It isn't about your pride. It's about the fact that there are people who need us, and there are people out there who can help us. And it's time that we get them on board. And so, I come to you and I tell you, and maybe I'm not doing a very good job at it because, I don't know. But what I'm doing is now I'm speaking to you from the heart. There's so many things that can go on. I've put literally years into understanding the drive and proclivity for African-American adolescent and young adult male violence. I literally have the solution and the answer. I need the manpower and I need the money power to implement it and put it into place, and to network it and make it national. Literally. I don't mean maybe, I mean proven results. And it can be taught to anyone, taught anywhere, and it can be a national and then international process. And it can become tradition, it can become part of the heritage of how we bring up our young black boys, so they know who they are. They know where they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to behave. All of these things. And so that's where I'm at right now. I am really pushing, and I'm hoping that we get to that point. I'm in the game until I stop breathing. But I would love a lot of y'all to join me. On that note, look, I'm out of here. Thank you guys for listening to me, and I will talk with you soon. Have an unbelievable